So in this video, I'd like to create a tutorial about how to do some of the other common features inside of GeoGebra. So the first thing I'd like to mention is that, again, you have all these different features here that you can play around with, and for the most part, they give you information about what they do. Now, one of the common things that we want to do is we want to, say, plot a function, f of x equals x squared, let's say, and then maybe another function like f of x equals 3x. And where did that go? Let's close that. Sorry, g of x, to have a different function name, equals x squared. And maybe what I want is the intersection point between these two. Not sure what's happening here. Again, you need to change the move view. Maybe I want to intersect these two functions. And so if I go over to one of these options here, let's see, that one doesn't seem to have intersect. There's an intersect. And intersect at the bottom of the screen says select intersection or two objects successively. So if I want to intersect them there, I can just click, and now see it's actually a call to a function called intersect. The first parameter is the first function, the second parameter is the second function, and I'm not sure what the 2 is, but needless to say, we would do the same thing for the other intersection point. So we can intersect them down here. And now if I so much as change this to +2 or +6, notice what happens now. That intersection point stays intact. So the fact that I can actually move this function or change this function +2, notice that the intersection points adjust accordingly because they were with respect to the function f and g, and I guess this one means that that's associated with one intersection point and the second intersection point. Okay, and then also notice that they formed ordered pairs here, so if I ever want to grab just the x component of point A, I can do that. The next thing I want to talk about is how to coordinate with the second graphics view. So let's say I had a second graphics view in here, and I wanted to do something with that second graphics view, so I could select that option. And maybe what I wanted was just to, first of all, maybe not plot point A, but maybe what I wanted to do is to, over here, maybe plot the point 12.68, 3.56. So the first thing that I can do is, if you select the graphics view that you want to work in, so just make sure I double click in there, and I type in the ordered pair y of A, I want that to be the x component, comma x of A. Now notice that I get the point 12.68, 3.56. Press enter. That creates a new ordered pair. Well, where is that point? Let's see. Did it get plotted here? Let's see. 12.68, 3.0. We don't see it there. Do we see it over here? And there it is. See? So now that ordered pair C is a link to the point A up here. And if I change the point A at all, and the way I can obviously change that is that's the intersection point, so this point C moves as well. The other way is obviously to right-click it, go to the settings, under Advanced, you can decide where it's going to show up. And if you want it to show up in Graphics View 1, you can do that, or you can only have it show up in Graphics View 2. Another thing that I can do in here is I can mess with the axes. So if you actually want to right-click kind of so that it says graphics, and then if you go to graphics, you can change X min, X max manually. You can say show axes or don't show axes. I'm not sure why it's not working. Let me change here to what do I have selected? Not sure why that's not showing up at the moment, but in any case, I can change things like the background color, and I think I just have a little glitch in this particular one, but you can uncheck show axes, especially if you have this downloaded. It's much better than trying to run it in the browser like I'm doing here. Okay, so you can change the color. Let's change that back. There we go. And again, you should be able to click show axes. It's just not wanting to. You can also say show numbers. So what show numbers will do is remove the numbers from the y-axis. Again, for some reason not showing up. It's really clunky when you're trying to run it off the browser. Okay, oh, that's why, because it was doing it on the view number 2. So let me go back to graphics, make this window a little bit bigger. Again, the more windows you have in there, the clunkier it's going to be. But x-axis, show numbers, show x-axis. I can just show the x-axis with the numbers, or I can just show the y-axis with the numbers, or I can just show the whole grid, etc. So you can play around with those features as well. Next thing I'd like to look at is how do you insert a box, an input box and an input slider. We kind of talked about input slider already. I'm going to get rid of graphics view 2 and go back to this one. Let's say what I want to do is I want to be able to have f of x be controlled by the user. I want the user to be able to specify that function, but in my applet, I don't want the algebra view. I don't want them to see all my symbols and all the stuff that I've created. It's too much. Okay, so what I can do is I can, first of all, put in the object that I want to be able to control with the box. That's the first step. You gotta have the function input. Next thing, and the reason is because we're going to link the input box to this function. So I'm going to close that. If I go over here to the same place where the slider is, I can actually insert a input box. So select position of the input box. So you put it where you want. The caption is what you want to call it. So maybe we're just going to type in function. And the linked object, now we're going to link that input box to an object that we've created. And you can see that all of these things are over in our algebra view. So if I just say link it to f of x, click OK, by default it's going to show what is currently stored in f of x. But if I want to come back and change it to 2x plus 3, notice what happens over here when I press enter. That controls the function. It's now linked to it. You can also change the settings of this guy. You can make the box bigger, smaller, etc. You can kind of play around with that. We said find intersection point of two functions. We've established that. The other thing you can do here is play around with text. Okay, and so when you work with text, you can insert text, and you can actually do an advanced view. And what advanced view will allow you to do is in here you could actually have a piece of text that is going to be linked to an object. So you can say the function is, and what I want to appear next is the actual function 2x plus 3. So I'm going to have this text bar on my screen. See, it's going to say the function is, and what I want to be able to do, let me delete that and start over. It's going to be easier. So I want to insert text. And I want this text to say the function is, and then what I want to appear over here is f of x. But f of x is changing, so I don't want to type in 2x plus 3. I want that linked to the function. So the way I do this is you go to advanced, and this little option here actually shows you all of your current objects that you have created. So I want to link that to f of x. Alright, so what that's going to do is if I go to preview, it's actually this little box right here, believe it or not, that is linked to this object. So if I click OK, and I come over here and I change this to 2x plus 5, this adjusts to 2x plus 5. If I change this to x squared minus 1, then this changes to x squared minus 1 as well. So that is linked. The other really cool thing we could do is we can actually type in things like, I want a text box, and I want this to say maybe something like, let's see, the x value of point A. Now point A is the intersection of those two functions, but it has an x coordinate and a y coordinate. So the x value of A is, well, how would I do this? I don't want to go to advanced, and I don't want to drop object A in there, because guess what that's going to show me? Right now it's not going to show me anything, sorry, because the two functions don't intersect. So let me cancel out of this for a second and put this back to 2x. Maybe 2x, yeah, that looks good. Okay, so now A is actually a defined point. There was no intersection between those two parabolas, so it was showing an undefined. So I'm going to insert a piece of text. So I'm going to click on text, insert it, and I'm going to say the x value of A is, okay, I'm going to go to advanced, I'm going to go to the GeoGebra objects. If I put in point A, and I go to preview, that gives me the whole ordered pair. I don't want the whole ordered pair. A is the object that corresponds to this point. I just want the x coordinate of it. So how do I do that? There's no option to do that. Let me delete that box. Come back to objects, select empty box. what this does is this actually allows me to actually type in code into this box. So if I go into this box, it will let me, there we go, I want the x coordinate of A. That's what I want inside that box. Now if I go to preview, notice that it just gives me 2. I can also take functions of that. I could say divide that by 10. All right, the x value of A is 0.2. Awesome. Okay, so I can actually take functions of that input. I can also average things together. I can do if statements in here. So let's look at an if statement. So let's put this box in. So the x value of A is, if I change this, notice that that changes as well. This is all dynamically linked together now. So the last thing I want to do is actually talk about putting an if statement. So maybe I want the text to display the sign of the component of A. So I want it to print the sign of the x component of A is positive, or the x component of A is negative. So the way I would do that is, again, insert the text, and in here I'm going to say the x component of A is, and I want it to, again, either print it is positive if the x component is positive, otherwise print negative if it's negative. So I will come over here again and insert this object. Now I will insert an empty box, and I will actually type in a command. So the command is if. Okay, so now I give the conditions. Okay, so that's the if statement. That's the start of the if statement. And what do I want to condition upon? I want to say if the x component of A is greater than 0, comma, what do I want it to do? Okay, well, I want it to show the text positive, in quotes. Okay, comma, and that means otherwise, if x is not bigger than A, now I know that means x is could be 0 as well, but let's ignore that condition for now. I want to print the word negative. Okay, so that is my function. And notice that I need to close that if statement. So if you do if, open parenthesis, close parenthesis, the first thing is, what do you want the condition to check for? Then, what do you want the outcome to print if that condition is satisfied? Otherwise, what do you want it to print? So if I look at the preview, the x component of A is positive. So because it looks at the x component of A, it realizes that's 2.73. That's a positive number. It is greater than 0. Print the word positive. If I change this to something else, like print boo, then it will print boo, because the first condition, or x is greater than A, so print the word boo. So I'm going to say put that back to positive. Again, double quotes around there. And so let's see what happens if the intersection point is negative. So let me make this 2x, make this negative 2x plus 2. So right now it's saying the x component of A is positive. It's still positive. Let me make this a little bit more drastic. Negative 10x, still positive. Let's see if I can make this negative. Negative 30x, still positive. Plus 20, still positive. How about make this minus 20? How will that change? Oh, there we go. Okay, so now we see that intersection point right there, and it's intersecting in the negative zone, so we want it to say the x component of A is negative. So it does that conditionally upon whether the x component of A is positive or negative. Last thing I want to show you is, you see how I zoom out and the position of that text is changing? If I always want that text to stay in the same place and I right click, I can lock that object to the screen. The other thing that I can do in here is, let's see, is I can say under position, I want the absolute position on the screen. What that's going to do is, no matter how much I zoom in or zoom out, that's going to stay on the same portion of the screen. It's not going to be locked to a coordinate. You can see that the function box does the same thing, but these guys have fixed XY positions, so when I zoom in, they disappear. So that's another little thing that you could do. Well, that's it for this video. I think you have the tools necessary to be able to build a small applet working with Graphics View 1 and Graphics View 2.